A new Pepsi ad featuring supermodel Kendall Jenner is sparking outrage after she appears to be handing a police officer a soda during a protest. Kristina Monllos is a staff writer for Adweek. Kristina, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So Pepsi wrote this in a statement, quote, Pepsi was trying to project a global message of unity, peace, and understanding. Clearly, we missed the mark and we apologize. What do you think happened here, Kristina?
Well, I think what happened is that they were trying to put out a message that they thought would resonate with young millennials. They're also a global company, so they're trying to put out, imagery that they can put any sort of messaging over. But really, it was that it was created by a team that maybe wasn't aware of what they were really trying to say or what their messages might actually say to people that are involved in the movements that, we're seeing them try and represent. It's also, when a brand says something political, it should be pointed, it should be clear rather than sort of like a generic message of unity where their product says that's the solution.
You think that's what this was here?
Yeah.
Well, what about the messenger itself? Kendall Jenner is the face of this ad, as we're seeing here, with nearly 78 million followers on Instagram. She's one of the biggest global supermodels right now. Do you think that there would have been as much of a controversy if it had been someone who was not a reality star, or if it was a person of color in this ad?
Yeah, I think if they had a person of color, or specifically a woman who's a person of color, because they have often been at the forefront and center of these movements, getting them going and making them happen, maybe there wouldn't be, but it's still pretty bad.
You think there's symbolism here, you were telling me before.
Yeah, I think, just at the end of the day, having a soda serve as the solution to a problem that they're not even comfortable talking about is a problem. And I don't know, this might be a problem for Kendall Jenner and her own brand because, much of the reception of this ad has been about how tone deaf it is, and specifically how tone deaf it was to have a rich white woman represent a movement, and, all of that has her name in it.
Yeah, so you feel like there was a little bit of a disconnect here between the folks who put this ad together and the actual feeling in the political climate and political atmosphere out there that this ad seemed to be trying to reference this movement.
Exactly.
So the ad, interestingly, posted to YouTube on Tuesday, is 2 minutes and 40 seconds long. The length of an average Super Bowl ad is about 30 seconds. Was this ad ever intended to air in its entirety? What's the strategy these days from folks advertising?
Right. So often you'll do a long form spot for digital and do a 30-second for broadcast. That was probably the strategy here to get, young millennials to see that oh, hey, Kendall Jenner, we like her. We're going to click on this. We're going to watch the whole ad because,
we're sharing it. We'll do
exactly.
Yeah. But, some skeptics might look at this and say that Pepsi created this controversial ad just to go ahead and generate conversation, that there's no such thing as bad publicity. What do you think about that?
I think that's certainly a take that you could have. I don't know if you've watched the show Tim and Eric, but Tim Heidegger, he directs ads sometimes, and he was sort of saying, I've directed ads. This is totally what this might be. But at the same time, when you have your brand name associated with tone deaf and failure and your soda sales are already down, I'm not sure if I would want to generate this controversy.
All right. Well, what about when the controversy doesn't have to do with the ad itself? For example, more than 30 advertisers, including Allstate, BMW, and Bayer Pharmaceuticals, have pulled their ads from the O'Reilly factor following sexual harassment accusations against Bill O'Reilly. What does this tell us about the power of consumers in this day and age?
Well, what it tells us is that consumers are able to go to brands and say, hey, do you really want to be associated with this kind of messaging? What does that say to me? I'm going to pull my dollars and buy another brand. That's scary for any brand marketer when they're seeing that on social media. And if they don't respond in the way that their consumers want and they're not transparent about it, that can be a big risk for them. So it's not surprising to see all of these brands pull their spending.
All right. Well, what comes next for advertisers, just sort of taking a step back from all of this? The notion of controversies, and particularly in this very polarized political atmosphere. We talked about that Pepsi ad a moment ago. Is there sort of a lesson here for advertisers about having to tread very carefully in this day and age? I mean, avoiding things that could be construed as overtly political one way or the other.
Yeah, I think that for brand marketers, if you're going to be putting out a message, you have to be pointed, you have to be real, you have to be honest with your consumers, and your brand definitely has to live up to those principles that you're putting out in your marketing. You can't have a message of unity and then also say that you can't really pay your workers fair wages, etc. It's a very tricky time to be a brand marketer. It's not easy.
All right, a lot of landmines in that. All right, Kristina Monllos, staff writer for Adweek, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.